and welcome to Ask a Teacher number 85. This is where you choose the topics that I talk about by asking questions to me. Nice, right? Because what's the Yes Japan Daily? That's me coming up with a topic and talking to you. This is you telling me what you want to know. And we had so many good questions today that this is actually a number 2. We already did an Ask a Teacher today. This is a double header because there's been so many good questions. First question is from Grimners. He says, which zoo is the right hiragana zoo to use? Why are there 2? It's a good question. And you know what? No one ever answers this. They say, well, there's 2 and they're using them. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you which one's the right one. I'm going to tell you. I'm just going to call it, right? No one ever calls it. They just give you, well, some words use one version and others use the others, and you just have to learn which one it is. You know what? That is true. But there is a clear winner in this. I'm gonna give it to you today. All right, so there are 2 zoos, right? And notice that I wrote ZU, or for those of you in Europe, ZU, ZU. By the way, Japanese also say Zetto, ZU, right? And then the bottom one is DU. Why did I do that? Is one zoo and the other one do? No. That's just how you type it when you're typing. Some people don't even know how to type it. They're like, how do I get the other zoo? And no matter what I do, I type ZU. It's always the one with the S zoo. I can't get it. It's DU or DZU will even do it. Well, wait a minute. Does that mean that it's pronounced differently? Isn't it zoo? I used to think that myself. I'm guilty of that. Even when we started teaching Japanese, I would teach it as z. It's really not, though. Apparently it's not. My wife has told me multiple times it's not. I've lost that. I said, are you serious? Really? 本当に? でもさ、ちょっとでも音が違うじゃないですか? Isn't the sound just a little bit different? 同じ. That bothers me, right? Why? Well, you know what? Every language has these little weird things, right? Korean's got 2 S sounds, and it's randomly used for no reason in other words, and sometimes it's this way and sometimes it's that way. It makes no sense. Same thing with Japanese, pretty much. Except there is a clear winner. I'm going to tell you right now. What's the right zoo, the correct way? This is it, the first one. This zoo is most common throughout the language. Matter of fact, it's very hard to find a ton of examples with do. Yeah, or do, but I mean zoo. Now, I found this zoo in many words. Yes, I did. It's not true to say that it's rare. It's just nowhere near as common as this one. That's the right one. Let's look at some words that use the first one very commonly. Chizu, map. Can you ever use the other zoo here? Never, ever, ever. It will be a different word. Zurasu. This is the verb to shift something. Zurasu, to change a time, for example. To move a time to a different time, right? 1時から2時にずらしました. We shifted it from 1 to 2 o'clock, for example. Tabezuni. Now, this is not a word by itself. This is a verb format, right? A verb form, tabezu, meaning without eating. And because it's, I don't know why you would have the ni after it, but you do. I was going to say because it's a time frame, but it's not a time frame. Tabezuni. Without eating, we did this. Tabezuni ikimashita. We went without eating. Tabezu ni kimashita. I came without eating. For example, let's say you go to a friend's house and they say, "Onaka wa dou desu ka?" How's your stomach? Like they've made food. Yeah, tabezu ni kimashita. Tabezu ni kimashita. I came without eating. You can say that. That's what that means. I came without eating. And that zoo is always this zoo, 100 million%. And then mizu, right? Water. And here's some. Okay, so there are tons of those. Here's the thing. So if you hear a zoo, assume it's that one, because then you're going to be almost always correct. Now, when does this one come up, this zoo? The most common way that this comes up is when a word is normally a tsu word, right? A word is a tsu word. It starts with tsu, without the little hash marks, which are called dakuten in Japanese, the dakuten. All right. And by the way, I don't know if you knew this. So that little thing, that little hash marky thingy, that's called a dakuten. And guess what? When it's on the character itself, they call that dakuon, not the character, but the sound that it makes. It's the daku sound. not duck. Daku. Daku, I think, means the. I might be wrong. Just a guess, right? Me and you, friend to friend. It's like the encompassing sound. Daku. It might be totally wrong. Anyway, that doesn't even matter. But it's called the dakuon. So a lot of times in charts, here, like for example, this chart in the back. Oh, you know what? Hang on. I printed it out. Hang on. I got a little folder here called Yes Japan Daily, just for these occasions. It's in alphabetical order behind warranties. There it is. Yes Japan Daily. Here we go. So a lot of charts. That's why the charts, like, they'll have this normal main list, and then they'll have a separated dakuon list. These are just the items that have dakuon on them. And by the way, which one is it? The red one here, which is papi pupipo. That's called the han dakuon, half dakuon. And that little circle is called a han dakuten. I don't know if you knew that. Some people don't know that, han dakuten. Because Japanese people maybe they'll call it like a maru, right? Or they'll call it what would they call? Well, they'll call the dakutens dakuten. They'll call it that. But you might hear them call that a little maru, which means circle. All right. So anyway, if a lot of times in Japanese, when you take one word and it gets combined with another word, the dakuten gets added if it can be added. And not all of the characters can have a daku. If you see, there's that many characters, right, in the main grouping. But then there's only this many. There's only 4 sets of things that can have dakuon. Of course, you can't count these down here, right? Which are the compound hiraganas. I feel like I've lost you guys. My point being this. So let's say, okay, first of all, I'm going to get to it. This word, tsuzuku, it means to continue. This one starts with a tsu, and it will be awkward, I think, here to have a zu with the other version here, because the word, it means continue, right? Why would you not continue the style, right? Tsuzuku. So any word that has that was like that. Here's what I was trying to talk about. So we have kokoro zuyoi. Kokoro zuyoi. It means heartening, right? Or what is not heartening? What does it say? Reassuring. Oops. Reassuring. But the words that make up this word is heart and strong. And strong by itself is tsuyoi. But there's a phenomenon that happens when you combine words to make one word. The second word in the grouping, if it can have a dakuten, a lot of times it gets added. For example, we've given this example before. Hibana. Hibana, which means spark. It's fire and flower. It's a fire flower. It's a spark. Hana, though, is how you say flower. But when you combine it, it becomes hibana. That exact same word, reversed, is hanabi, which is flower fire, and it means fireworks. Hanabi. Cool, right? All right. So are there more words that do that? Yeah, there's some. There's even some words that start with zu. You can go to the Yes Japan Dictionary, which is yesjapan.com/dictionary. And I've built in a little function. My dictionary is not the best. It's sort of crappy, honestly. Jisho.org kills it like by a million. But there's a function on Yes Japan Dictionary that I really like. It's called words beginning with or words ending with. You can search for a pattern. And I like that because I use that a lot. Like if I'm searching for, like for example, I couldn't find any words that end in this zu, in the tsu version of zu. Couldn't find any. They don't exist. So, kind of fun way to research things. But if you go in there, like 200 things will come up that have that in there. All right. Thank you for the question. Hawk 8351229 says, when did you decide that you must learn Japanese? It's a good question. I'm almost certain I've told the story before. I'm gonna play a song that is the story. It is the story of when I decided to learn Japanese. Here it is.
We love Japanese girls. We love them. We love Japanese girls. We love them. We love Japanese girls, we love them. We love Japanese girls, we love them.
When I was 12 years old, my dad took me to Japan, and ever since that, my life has changed. I met a Japanese girl on the airplane. Well, she was the stewardess, and I fell in love. Oh my God.
We love Japanese girls, we love them. We love Japanese girls, we love them.
僕はアメリカ人と付き合ったことない。もう付き合う気はないんだもん。だって日本人と付き合ってからはもう良さが分かったんだよ。もうこれ以上私はもうたまんないわ。日本人の女の子は本当に最高。もういい匂いもするし髪も長いしもう可愛いよ。もうどうしよう。
We love Japanese girls, yes we do. We love Japanese girls, you do too. We love Japanese girls, we love them. We love Japanese girls, we love them.
もうアメリカ人の友達誰も分かってくれないよ。なんでお前はそんなに日本人が好きなんだよ。おい、お前付き合ったことあんのかい？
We love Japanese girls. We love Japanese girls. We love Japanese girls, yes we do. If you try hard, you will too.
What do you mean try hard? Japanese girls are awesome. All you gotta do is look at one and then you're gonna want one. ああ、最近日本の女の子の声は聞いてないよ。どうしても聞きたいよ。どうすればいいんだろう。あ、そうだ。チャットしよう。
I love Japanese girls, yes I do. I love Japanese girls, so should you. You love Japanese girls, yes you do. You love Japanese girls and they love you.
Don't we all wish Japanese girls loved us?
So, long story short, when I was 12, I went to Japan. And I was on an airline that doesn't exist anymore called Northwest Orient. And the stewardess was so pretty. I mean, like, I was 12, you know. They were, like, beautiful. And I remember my dad, and I've told this story before. And do I have to qualify this every time I do this? But my dad was telling me all these crazy things about Japan, right? He's like, you know, George, first he was telling me real things, right? He's like, you know, Japan has a population half the size of the United States in a place the size of California. I was like, wow, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people in the size of California, right? Think about it. Like 130 million people in California, right? So I was like, well, that's pretty impressive. He's like, you know, George, in Japan they have Apple computers, but they call them Japple. Really? And I remember at the time thinking, they just cover up the logo? I mean, what do they do? It's like a different... Japple. That's interesting. You know, George, in Japan they have eyewitness news just like we do. It's like a news show. They just call it slant eyewitness news. Yeah, that's racist, I know, but it's funny. It's funny. Tonight in the news, I mean, that's what I was imagining. Like, interesting. It's not slanted news, it's a slant. Oh, okay, all right. And then, so we're on the airplane, and I was in love with the stewardess, so I kept asking for peanuts. I remember this distinctly. I was loading up on the peanuts. I'd get one pack, I'd ring for another. Eventually, she just put a whole bunch in front of me. It's like, damn it. And then she was trying to keep me occupied, so she brought me a deck of cards. And I remember saying, will you play with me? But I don't think she wanted to play with me. So she didn't, I don't think. I don't even remember that far back. But I remember thinking, wow. And I remember I told my dad, too. I said, Dad, first of all, I had a question for him. I said, Dad, who owns the Pacific Ocean? That was one question I didn't know. Who owns the Pacific Ocean? The other thing was not a question. It was something I noted. I said, Dad, and I really, really meant it at age 12. I said, I think I know why the population of Japan is so big. Why is that, son? Because the girls are so pretty. That's why, right? But I remember on the airplane, this is when I decided I was going to learn Japanese, but it was a very low-level decision, right? They had these signs about no smoking and stuff like that. And I saw this character, this hiragana character, no, which I didn't know what it was at the time. It was this little loopy thing, and it was easy to recognize. I said, I'm going to learn that character. And you can't stop me because I've already said this story if you've already heard it. But when I learned no, finally, I was like, yes, no. Now all I need to do is learn yes. Once I know how to say yes, of course, no doesn't actually mean no. It's a particle. Anyway. All right, so that's when I decided right there on the airplane, I decided I was going to learn. Before then, I had no clue. You got to understand, when I went to Japan, no one knew what Japan was. No one knew. Like, literally, it was part of China as far as I knew. There was no internet. It was 1985. You didn't even have cell phones. No one had a computer in their house, pretty much. So when we went to Japan, it was really... I mean, I remember my dad saying things like, when we're in Japan, we can go up to Hong Kong and get some cheap jackets. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense because it's in China, right? he was talking about flying to Hong Kong. He wasn't meaning driving to Hong Kong. I thought he meant flying. And when I went, there was so little information about Japan. I thought Japan, I just had this image because there was this one commercial that was on TV about the car industry. And it was an American car company. This is around the time when Japan bashing was happening, and they were fueling the Japan bashing. Probably some of you kids don't even know. This is like 85, way back, right? But there was a time in American history when we were bashing Japanese cars because they were taking over the American car market, right? And Japanese products were starting to get bigger and bigger in America. So people hated. Some cars were getting, people were slashing their tires and busting their windows because they were Japanese. And I remember one commercial, I don't know what it was for, but they said like a small island country, with only this much population is doing this. And it was a bunch of robots. They showed all the robots in a Japanese car factory. So in my mind, I thought robots. But yet, because Japan was in Asia, I thought roads that aren't paved with robots. Unpaved roads with robots. I had no clue. You guys have it easy. You guys could easily find out what Japan is about. I didn't know anything. All right, that's when I decided Hawk. Wrath of Slime says, is it at all normal or common to use the wa particle twice in one sentence? No. It's not common to use wa in a sentence. I could go really long on this. There is a way to use wa officially twice in a sentence, but it's when you're quoting a sentence, right? Joji wa iku. Let's see, how can I do this? I can't even. It's so uncommon. It's hard for me to even come up with a great example that makes actual legitimate sense. Does it happen? Yeah. You'll hear it, but I can't even come up with a reason why. Because typically what happens in a sentence is this. Watashi wa pizza ga suki desu. I like pizza. And what I tell my teacher, what I tell my students when I had the live classes is I would say, if you want to say wa again, say ga. Because typically that's where the ga would be used, right? Speaking of me, I like pizza. You could say watashi wa pizza wa suki desu. You could, but it's weird. But there are times where you'll hear it or you'll want to do it. But if you just follow this sort of instinct of when you want to use it twice, say ga the second time around, you're going to sound better almost all the time. I'm certain someone will give me a great reason why you can say wa twice in a sentence. But remember, what wa's job is really supposed to do is, most of the time, just serving up a topic. You don't need to double serve something in a sentence. And you don't have two topics in a sentence. If you did, you'd use an and marker. So the quick, simple answer is no. You can't. Next question. Okay, I saved this one for last. It's a huge. Just look at this. It's very, very huge. It's so much that I had to shrink it really a lot to get on the screen. It's from Soggy Cake, and I don't think I'm going to have a satisfying answer here, but I do want to talk about something very important about when you're learning a language. Soggy Cake says, I've come across a word that I've had a bit of trouble understanding. It's basically gotoku. But how is it different from yo and yo? I checked an English dictionary and it didn't help any. It just says like, as if, the same as. And then he has the Japanese definition of it. And they have to onaji da, it's the same as, or notori, as you see, or no yoda, as it appears. And then it also says something that is undetermined. In other words, rashi. So for an example, from a song's... And by the way, at this point I said, I have never seen gotoku in my life. Never seen the word. And I just automatically assumed that he probably just saw it in the dictionary when he was looking up something. Because this is very, very typical. You study Japanese, you look up a word, and 15 versions of it come up. Well, on jisho.org, it'll tell you if it's a common word or not. It's very important that you see common. Then you'll know, if you say it, it won't be weird. Gotoku, I've never heard, but I did do some research. And this is where, once he said this next part is when I knew what was happening. He says, so for an example from a song's lyrics, he gives an example. And here's the thing. It's because it's a song, right? It's a poem. Or it's a story. A lot of times, there's a lot of Japanese that's only really done in poetic form. I'm going to call that this. That's what gotoku is. I'm not sure what it means, but something like memory is fading, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's the word he's talking about, gotoku. And the official definition of it is like, as is, and the same as. So how do you use it? Well, the way I look for things that I don't know, first I look them in the dictionary, then I do the Google challenge. I take that verb as is and I put it in Google. And the most common thing that came up was stuff like this. Ryu ga kodoku. Wait a minute, it says kodoku. It should be gotoku. Sorry. My bad. Gotoku. So that means, like, my definition is totally wrong, but when you look that up in the if you look that up in Google Translate, you know what that translates to as? Yakuza. Like a dragon. I don't know why that comes up that way, but it does. And then if you go to, sometimes I don't like to use just Google Translate. There's a Japanese translator from Excite, COJP. If you just type Excite Translate, it'll bring you to that. I typed it in there. Then it said a dragon is needed. So I have no idea where that comes from. And then there's another one that came up, Kaze ga gotoku. And I put that into Google. Couldn't even handle it. It didn't even know what to do with it. It had no clue. And then I put it into Excite and it said the wind is needed. So what does it mean? I have no clue. And this goes back to another question. I don't know if it was this Ask a Teacher or the one prior. Someone said, are there things you don't know in Japanese? Yeah, this is one of them. I have no clue what this is. So I warn you though, don't always trust the dictionary when you're looking at it. Do a Google test, because what is Google testing? Google testing is seeing what everyone in Japan is saying. But you have to also be careful with that, because a lot of times those results, if you look, they're JLPT results. What does that mean? Japanese language proficiency test. That means it's only a word. If it's always a ton of JLPT results, it means it's not used in everyday life. That's what it means. It means JLPT wants you to know it for the test, but most Japanese people aren't using it. You have to go a few pages and see if it's actually being used anywhere. And this gotoku word, not being used. It's just not being used anywhere. Okay? I did find one more thing for it. It can also be shiku. Shiku. And there's a little word here that says archaic. It says archaism. It's old. It's not used anymore even. And I believe even gotoku is very rarely used. But it means to match or to equal. And another thing I did, I went to ALC ARC, which is ALC.cojp, and I typed in kodoku, okay? And here is some of what I got for how it's used. And it's very, very, very poetic, everything that it says here. Let me just get to that part. So, 水面における影のごとく, okay, blah, blah, blah. It was an imperfect reflection of her and transparent as a shadow of water. See, it's as a shadow, right? Kage no gotoku. That's how they're using it. Basically, it's like saying kage no yoni, as if it were a shadow or like a shadow. But they're using this kodoku or gotoku. I can't even remember how to say it right. Then there's another one. Let's see, I remember. Okay. Like a Roman statue, for example. Roma no dozo no gotoku, right? I mean, where are you going to use this in everyday life? This is very, very poetic. And then there's kaze no gotoku ni, a starry hope that didst arise but to be overcast. Those of you that are taking Japanese bungaku, literature, you're screwed. You're going to know all these weird things that people don't know in Japan. Imagine if a Japanese person was studying Shakespeare and then talked to you with all of their Shakespeare knowledge. Just imagine. I don't know enough Shakespeare to give an example, except for Macbeth. Is this a knife I see before me? But I'm sure it was more poetic in the actual Macbeth poem. I don't remember. I failed English. No, I didn't. I'm lying. I didn't do very well, though. I had to cheat to pass it. That's right. All right, anyway. Thank you for watching YesJapan.com Ask a Teacher. If you'd like to be involved, if you'd like to get your question answered, it's really, really easy. I'm an easygoing guy. If I get too many questions, I'll do 3 or 4 of these in a row if I have to. And I've done it before. All you have to do is follow us on Twitter, and then we send out a tweet a few hours before. All right? Or you can get on the Yes Japan mailing list by just signing up on Yes Japan for a free account. But it's not as reliable because it takes like 2 hours to send to everybody. This huge list of people. So if I decide I'm going to do something at 4 and it's 2 o'clock, you're not going to get the message until maybe after I start. So the best thing you can do is get on that Twitter. We have a shamefully limited amount of people on Twitter. There's like 670 max. We should have thousands. Please join us on Twitter. All right, I'll see you guys all in the next Axe. I should do that once. Yo, welcome to Ask a Teacher. My name, I just do it in all Ebonic form. I'll see you on the next Ask a Teacher Live. Bye bye. All right, now that full song won't be in the actual broadcast